Hello, everybody. I'm Kevin Daly for PATH. Welcome to a panel discussion about supported decision-making. It's also known by the letters SDM. Let's start by introducing our distinguished panelists. And panelists, be sure to give us a wave when I say your name. Please welcome Molly Cole, who is the Executive Director of the Connecticut State Independent Living Council, also known as SILC. Be sure to give us a wave. Gretchen Knopf, Director of the Office of Services for Protection for Persons with Disabilities for the City of New Haven. Ruth Nuss, who is the Board President of PATH, and Sammy Nuss. She is a self-advocate who has an SDM plan. Also with us behind the scenes is Marnie McNith of PATH, who will provide links and information through chat. So please keep an eye on the chat. Now let's get into it. First question, what is strategic decision-making? And I understand we have a PowerPoint.
Hi, everybody. So glad that you could join us this evening to talk about supported decision-making. Molly and Ruth and Sammy and I are all very excited about supported decision-making in Connecticut. Supported decision-making is actually quite simple. Supported decision-making, as we have in our slide, is getting the help when you need it from people you choose so you can make your own decisions. And it's basically how we all make decisions. We're talking about it at the Supported Decision-Making Coalition as a way, as an alternative to guardianship and conservatorship for individuals with disabilities. So many times we hear that individuals are told that when they're turning 18, that their families or their caregivers should get guardianship or conservatorship, or when someone's older, that if they need help making decisions, that the first thing you should do is go to the probate court and get conservatorship. Well, those things aren't necessary. They actually can be detrimental to an individual. In some cases, that guardianship and conservatorship are warranted, but in so many cases in Connecticut, supported decision-making is the way that we want to, take a look before we go to guardianship and conservatorship. Basically, we all use supported decision-making. I use it, you use it, everybody on this call uses it. It's when you go buy a car, you talk to your friends about what you want to do. If you need help with making a decision about even what you want to wear to the prom, and you're talking, with your friends, or what you're going to have for dinner, and everybody goes, well, you could have this, or we could have this. And it basically, is talking with people, getting support. Maybe that dinner choice depends on what's in the refrigerator. So somebody will say, well, you can go out and get something, or we can use what's in the refrigerator. I mean, there are just so many places where supported decision-making makes sense. The one thing about supported decision-making is that it doesn't take away a person's rights. When you go to the probate court, you are taking away a person's right to make decisions about basic things, about where they live, where they work, how they handle their money, about their health care. And there's so many places where individuals could be making their own decisions, and with the court making a guardianship decision or a conservatorship decision, the individual just doesn't get that right. So supported decision-making is basically what happens in supported decision-making is that instead of guardianship and conservatorship, the individual goes through a process. The first thing to do is sort of figure out where they might need some help. So, do you need help in healthcare? Do you need help in choosing your housing? Do you need help with getting employment? And the person does an evaluation, and there are actually tools that can help with this. And once you make decisions about what those areas are, then you think about the people who you trust who can help you or may have helped you in these areas previously. So for example, money. Some people have need help. They think they need help with finances. So they may go to a relative, they may go to a parent, they may go to a friend, somebody they trust to help them make whatever decisions they need to make about money. And so those people are called supporters. And so you talk to those individuals and say, I want to do supported decision making, and I'm going to put together an agreement, and will you support me? And as a supporter, those people we are agreeing to help you understand the pros and cons, the sort of the good and bad, or where you're able to make decisions, what your choices are. They do not make the decision for the individual with a disability. The supporter is there to help you understand, if you make this decision, what might happen, or if you make the other decision, what might happen. They're there to help you with information and to provide support. But in the end, the individual with a disability makes the decision. And this is so key in supported decision making and in self-determination, because the more decisions individuals make, the better decisions get made. And there's a building on those decisions, and people become more capable and more self-determined. And it just rolls from there. So the earlier you can do supported decision making, the better. Even, as soon as a child can choose that they want to wear a red shirt or a blue shirt, you start doing supported decision making and moving forward with that. So once you choose those supporters and they understand what their role is, you do a plan or supported decision making agreement. It does not have to be in writing, but it is recommended that you do put a plan in writing, and you're putting in this plan, and right now there's no specific form, but you're saying, this is the area where I need help, and these are the people who are going to help me in this area, and you all sign this agreement. And anytime you want to change that supporter, or that person can no longer support you, maybe they are moving somewhere else, or they can't do it because they're too busy, you can always add supporters, and people can leave as supporters. So it really is a relationship like with your friends. Sometimes you have friends who come and go. So once you do that, you make that written agreement and you move forward, and you can change the places where you need help. Maybe you're doing supported decision making, you're doing so well in one category, you don't need that anymore. So you can change your agreement. This is the nice part about supported decision making. The more you do, the more decisions you make, the less you may need that support. And it works well. And you haven't, as a person with a disability, lost your right to make that decision.
Excellent. Thank you, Gretchen. Next
Well,
question. What is the SDM Coalition?
So we have been around as a coalition since 2018. And this is basically a collaboration between state agencies. I will put up a list in a minute of who's on the Supported Decision-Making Coalition, but we are all individuals, agencies, and organizations that really care about supported decision-making, about protecting an individual's right to self-determine without losing their civil rights, without going through guardianship if it's possible. We know that it's not for everybody, but we do know that it's an alternative to guardianship, and we're really committed to making that alternative part of what goes on in Connecticut. So basically, we were established to give information about supported decision making, and we do have quite a plan in terms of what we're going to be doing over the next year. Let me just show you who's on this coalition right now. So Gretchen and I have been kind of co-chairing this. We have self-advocates, we have representatives from Disability Rights Connecticut, representatives from the ARC, we have a number of attorneys, the DD Council is on, parent organizations are on. We have hired Jonathan Martinez. If any of you have heard Jonathan speak about supported decision-making, he's a nationally known speaker, and we have hired him for long-term consultation on this project. So Jonathan is not only doing training, but Jonathan is also developing materials with us, helping us think through our process and goals, and really putting a lot of momentum behind the work that we've been doing. So it's, we're really excited about where we're going this year and the efforts that we have coming up. We did one kickoff webinar in June. We have a whole series of them coming up over the summer. We're also planning some in-person training, and in the fall, we will be doing a supported decision-making summit with all the stakeholders, including families and self-advocates and agency reps and attorneys and probate, kind of getting everybody together with transition coordinators and others to think about how we can move this forward in Connecticut. So there's a lot happening with the coalition. And we will give you contact information at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Molly. Now, is there legislation regarding SDM that we should be aware of?
Well, we have one more slide, but I think you kind of went through it.
The slide is this one.
Yeah.
So these are the goals. And my dog is barking, so I'm going to let you talk.
All right. There is legislation, to answer your question, Kevin. We are working toward legislation, and in this current session, in House Bill 5001, there was supported decision-making added to the sections on special education and requiring schools to educate as part of the IEP and the transition process about various guardianship, conservatorship, and supported decision-making, so that families aren't just getting the message about guardianship and conservatorship, but they're also getting it about SDM. We're going to be putting together some information about that coming up. This is fairly new, so we haven't had time to do a question and answer, but we're hopefully going to be educating parents and families, you know, with Jonathan and booklets, and then we're talking about doing a question and answer for educators and teachers about it, and hopefully they'll join us for some of the things that Jonathan's doing, because we think that that's a really important place to be focusing our efforts. So quickly, our coalition goals sort of cover the same things that Molly was talking about. We felt that when we started this, that our first thing was to really educate targeted groups and the general public about supported decision-making and the alternatives, talking about if you choose supported decision-making, how can you still go to your child's IEP? Just child gives you permission. If you, you know, so supported decision-making doesn't mean you can't go to a doctor's appointment. You sign, you know, your child signs forms that allows you to see records, and if they want you to, I mean, they may in supported decision-making want someone else to have that, but that's all part of the beauty of it. Other targeted groups include probate judges, parents, families, case managers for Department of Developmental Services and DEMIS, and really anybody who wants to be working with this and to educate the public about it. We've been identifying supporters. You can see we've added a number of people to our coalition on the list before. We used to have maybe about 11 people. Now we're adding people who are very interested. Ruth and Sammy have been with us since the beginning. Develop and work for passage. So we are now looking at hopefully developing legislation and getting in the next session passed legislation that requires probate courts to ensure that supported decision-making was considered prior to any kind of guardianship or conservatorship. You know, that's the place where it's really important to make sure that you have a barrier before that's going to happen. I mean, if it's appropriate for guardianship and conservatorship, that's one thing. But again, like I said before, in so many cases in Connecticut, it really is not. And so hopefully educating probate judges and having them take a look at that. It'll take some time, but if the legislation requires it, at least we'll start really get the ball rolling. And then we're also developing a repository of information. I like that. Basically on the CT Silk website, we have a supported decision-making page. Our first webinar that was the beginning of June is going to be put up there as soon as the captioning is ready. And we'll be having other webinars and also information. We have booklets that are going to go along with lots of topics. We also have videos from other places, short videos that talk about what SDM is. And we'll just keep adding information as we go along so that people can get more education about it.
And now let's hear from Ruth Noose and Sammy Noose, two members of the coalition who are here to talk about their own SDM journey. Ruth and Sammy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Sammy and I are really excited to be here today to share with you our supported decision-making journey. It started when Sammy was in high school, and on the advice of our special education teachers, my husband and I had been researching the process of guardianship because we were afraid that we wouldn't be able to help Sammy with medical, financial, and educational situations and decisions when she turned 18. We downloaded all the forms. And we read upon the intention of all of it, but we really just didn't feel like it was the right thing to do for Sammy. She would have lost all her rights to make decisions for herself. And whilst we knew that we would not take those rights away from her, we were concerned that what would happen if something happened to us. And though that guardianship passed on to someone else, we wanted to make sure that she was protected in that situation for making her own decisions. So we put it off because we were conflicted. We didn't know what to do. But all the while we felt anxious about, what was going to happen, and kind of guilty because we weren't doing anything. We felt like we needed to do something, but we weren't doing anything. We knew other people that had guardianship, but their situations were not the same as ours. And we didn't know of any other option that Sammy had aside from guardianship. We wanted her to have as much independence and autonomy as possible. And we felt like guardianship was just way too restrictive for her level of capability. Sammy, why don't you tell everyone how you were feeling about what it meant to turn 18?
I was really nervous and I felt lost, and I didn't know what was going to happen after high school. And I thought I was going to have to make all my decisions all alone. I remember seeing the appointment to go to the probate court on the calendar, but didn't really know what it meant. But then one day it just disappeared.
And I didn't even know that she noticed the calendar appointment for probate court. So that's just something I just learned. So in October 2014, Sammy and I attended the Building a Great Life conference, which I believe Gretchen and Molly were involved in running. And if you ever get a chance to go to that conference, it's really a fabulous resource. We learned a lot. And there was a breakout session called Alternatives to Guardianship, which I attended while Sammy was at another session with her CASA group. I'd never heard of supported decision-making before, but as soon as they started talking about it and explaining it, I knew this was the right path for our family. I was so excited when I heard about the pilot program in Massachusetts, and that an individual with disabilities could have independence and self-determination by selecting a team of supporters who would provide guidance and advice on topics that they needed help with. Because this was the way we raised our kids anyway. We gave them choices. We let them make their own age-appropriate decisions as they grew up. So, and I also love the fact that, as Gretchen mentioned, that the decision was still Sammy's to make. Nobody's going to steamroll her. Nobody's going to force her to make a decision that she's not comfortable with. This is, at the end of the day, still her decision. And that was really important. Just like we all have that, right? Everybody has that right to make their own decisions. So at the end of the session, I asked the lawyer giving the presentation and leading the discussion if we could do this in Connecticut. And she said, well, right now there isn't a program in Connecticut, but sure, you can do it. Here's the form. And she gave me a copy of the form. So I couldn't wait to tell Sammy about it.
You're excited.
I was like, come on, let's get in the car. I've got something to tell you. So all the way home in the car, we were talking about it, and we was just so excited that there was an option that felt right to us. It just fit our situation. we couldn't wait to get started. So I took the form, I converted it to reflect Connecticut information. I looked up the laws that matched the Massachusetts ones. I switched out the phone numbers to the Connecticut ones. And we went from there. And in making the form, Sammy picked things that were relevant to her. She attends community college, so education was a big one for her.
Yeah.
She sees a number of different doctors and specialists, so medical, both physical and mental health were important. And financial was another important category. And the categories can be chosen and changed at any point, like Gretchen mentioned. It's a growth thing as your situation changes. So Sammy, do you want to talk about how you picked your supporters?
Yes. So I chose my parents and close family friends as supporters on my agreement. For each category, I chose at least 2 supporters to help me make my decisions. For example, I have my mom and a close family friend for medical, my dad and a different close family friend who works for finance for financial things, and my mom and dad for education.
So Sammy picked people she knows really well, she trusts, she's comfortable with, they know her well, and they know what her life goals are. So they're helping support the decisions that she's interested in, the things that she wants to do, and they're not trying to put their spin on it. They're just looking at Sammy's well-being. So she was very careful about who she picked. She's used her supported decision-making agreement in college, along with a FERPA form, which is a whole other story for another day. And at the doctor's office, we've never actually had pushback. In fact, the doctor's office, I remember walking into the doctor's office one day with Sammy, and the assistant said, "Oh, we don't let anybody come in with the patient." And I said, "Oh, we have a supported decision-making agreement." And she's, "Do you have that in writing?" So we said, "Yes." And she's like, "Oh, great." And just ushered us right in. So it was like she was relieved to see something on paper. I'm not sure that she knew what it was, but she was relieved to see something on paper that gave permission for us to do that. So, and you know, Gretchen talked about people that have guardianships that shouldn't have them.
Right.
And we know people like that. Sammy felt very strongly that she wanted to share supported decision making with other people and get the word out that it exists.
Right, exactly. So yes, I have friends who have guardianships and who are very unhappy. They want to have a job or go to college or drive, and they are not allowed to, unfortunately. And they're very capable like I am. Right? I have a disability, but I've earned my early childhood education certification, and I'm working towards my associate's degree right now. I've had a job in a preschool, which started as a volunteer 10 years ago. And I was an aide, and now I am an assistant teacher. When I was growing up, people told me I could never be a teacher because of my disabilities.
And it's the only thing that Sammy has ever wanted to be. Since she was 3 years old, she always wanted to be a teacher. And no matter what people have said to her, Sammy has never given up or let people tell her what she was capable of. In her own kind and sweet Sammy way, she just got on with it and proved that she could do it.
Right. I have a great life and would like to help other people with disabilities have the chance to make their own decisions in life choices like I do. So I had an idea that I would like to try and change the law in Connecticut so that people could learn about support decision making and know they had choices and consider it before getting into a guardianship situation. My mom and I found out about the coalition, and we went to talk to Gretchen, and she asked if we would like to join. And we said yes.
And the rest is history. And we're really excited to be part of the coalition.
Yeah. I'll never forget meeting you. It was such a great day.
Yeah, it was.
Well, Sammy, I think that you've already started to educate others and to help them just by, you know, you and your mom telling your story, and hopefully you'll help us continue to do that. And then when the legislation comes, come and testify.
Yes,
We'd love to.
yes, we would.
We do have a question in the chat. Can a person that is already in a restricted guardianship plan change to SDM? And will judges reevaluate individual needs and desires?
You want me to answer that?
Yes. you-
So supported
Attorney
decision
Knowles
making.
can answer it.
Yeah, right. So the probate, if you can go back to the probate court and ask to have the guardianship removed. And one of the things that might help the probate judge make that decision is having done the work, and say, you know, I'd like to substitute for a supported decision-making agreement, and this is how it's going to work for me, because it shows responsibility, it shows the person can make choices, and it shows that they continue to have support. So it definitely is something that can be done for your friends too, Sammy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Well, here's a question about beginning the SDM process. Who should one talk to if they want to begin this process? Who
Well,
would
I
like
think
to take that?
I can take that. I think that, you know, there are a couple things you can do. First of all, you can reach out to us at the Supported Decision Making Coalition. We can help you think through your process. But in addition, you can also just begin the process yourself. So just start to think about what are the things you need to make decisions about. As Gretchen outlined earlier, you know, thinking about, you know, where do you need help making decisions, and where don't you need help? Where are your strengths? Where aren't your strengths? And then how do you best receive support? Some people like to have meetings and really talk about their needs. And Gretchen and I are doing that with a person right now and helping him think through his supported decision making. But other people just want to, you know, call you when they have a question and not really get into sort of a monthly meeting or a regular meeting. So there's that to consider. There are, then you've really got to find your supporters. Once you know how you want your support delivered, you got to think about how you're going to find your supporters. Who are they going to be? Sammy outlined why she chose the people she chose. It's very personal and individual. So your team can look like anything. Then you've got to put it together. Think about what that plan is going to look like, what's going to be included, and then put it in writing. So the steps are pretty basic. On our website, and actually if I share screen again, I can give you that. Here's the information on reaching us. We have a full page on the State Independent Living Center, State Independent Living Council website. It is a supported decision-making page. We're posting all of our materials there. There will be an introductory booklet posted within a few weeks. There's some basic information there now. The first video should be up. And you can also write for information at sdminfo@gmail.com. We're happy to answer your questions and give you assistance. We are very excited to be moving this forward. So any way that we can be of help, we will do gladly.
One
Absolutely.
final question. Oh, please go ahead, Gretchen.
No, I just was saying absolutely. Call, email, go on the website. You know, like I said, we're going to be putting materials on there all the time. And there are lots of members of the coalition who'd be happy to talk to you. And, you know, starting at the Silk, and they may come to me or somebody else to help. And if you have a guardianship and you want to talk about, you know, getting rid of the guardianship and going to a supported decision making, we actually have people who have done that as well on the coalition and can be helpful with that too.
We did have a question on whether there are forms or worksheets to help with the process. Would that all be on the website? I did drop the link to the website in the chat for everybody watching.
It will be in the introductory booklet, which should go up shortly. So there are quite a few resources and links right in that first booklet that you can go to that give you all sorts of ideas on what you can do. There's a supported decision-making resource website. There are lots of things that you can look to. So you're definitely not in this alone. And as I said, if you get stuck, we're happy to help you. And one more thing, I would be very remiss if I did not say that we are doing all of this with funding and support from the Council on Developmental Disabilities and from the Connecticut State Independent Living Council. So we have partnered up to do this because we're just really committed to it. So,
And the Silks funds as well.
yes.
Silks own funds. We do, the coalition in the spring of, I think, 2021, we put together a whole book. It's almost like a book, not a booklet, but it's a number of pages that goes through a lot of supported decision making. It does have some of those materials that they're asking about. I don't know if it's on the website, but if you, it does have some of the worksheets in it. Like where do you need help? The person that Molly and I are working with, we sent that to him and he used it to help him identify where he needed help. So whoever is asking the question, just send an email to the sdm@gmail.com, sdminfo@gmail.com. And we'll be happy to send that to you if it's not up on the site already.
Excellent. Marnie, is there anything else in the chat?
No, that was it. And I did put obviously the Silk website as well as the email in the chat. And Path will also be sharing information as we get it from Silk, so you can look to our Facebook page as well. So we will keep that information out there.
That's great. Thank you. And we are simply out of time. Many thanks to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah.
And many thanks to you, our viewers. This is Kevin Daly for Path, signing off.
Bye.
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 Bye, everybody.
Bye.